create more variety and gain more experience in different avenues of your airline, besides just flying the line.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot, welcome back to Ready for Pushback, because we are ready to talk to Jimmy one more time. Jimmy is our friend, our anonymous friend that reaches out and wants to talk about things that have happened in their life. Maybe they have questions, maybe they want to share a story, but they'd rather remain anonymous. And so that's what we're doing today. And you are going to hear our friend Jimmy talk about what it's like to get hired outside of the flow for a major airline. And it can be done. And she has decided to share this information. I think this is a fun conversation. Lots to write down, lots to think about, lots to chew on, lots of good opportunity, all right? So sit back, relax, get ready for Pushback. Let's go. And last but not least, let's have a quick word from our sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't have this awesome podcast. Hey, pilot, did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere? Or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, tridenthomeloans.com, and check them out. Hey, pilot, I want to tell you about a great friend of the show, Timothy P. Pope. He's a financial planner, and he's completely focused on the professional pilot. He's the kind of guy you want to go to for real talk to help you figure out your financial future. With so many upgrades and so many transitions and so many things going on, you owe it to yourself to give him a call. He'll help you design and execute really smart financial planning strategies, whether it's retirement planning, investment management, military transition, tax planning. He's a great financial planning partner. Timothy P. Pope, CFP, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Give him a shout. All the information's in the show notes. You should definitely tell him I told you to call. All right, party people, I have a really fun guest today. This is my friend Jimmy. You may have met Jimmy in the past, and he or she comes in and gives us some good information about the industry and is totally anonymous. So Jimmy, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, your voice has changed since last time we talked, so it's very nice to hear you. Well, hey, we are talking about your interesting experience in your career and how you made it happen for yourself. And we are talking about getting hired outside of the flow at an American Airlines wholly owned. And so I would like for you to kind of lay out, like, give me a little bit of background about what you were doing. And I want to talk about how you made that happen, because I talk to so many people that want to go to an airline, but they're flying for their regional and they can't seem to break that glass ceiling, and you did it. So I want to know how you did it. So can you give us a synopsis of kind of where you started and how you crushed it?
Sure. Well, a little bit about myself, kind of starting from my aviation background. I started as a flight attendant at a regional airline for a couple of years, and then I moved over to that mainline position as a flight attendant as well. And while I was a flight attendant, I did all of my ratings and then made the hop to CFI, did some skydiving operations, and then got hired at the regional airline that we're talking about. While I was at the regional airline, like you mentioned, it was very difficult to break the glass ceiling, like you said, to get to that main line. And of course, most of the people who are going to the regional airline for that specific mainline are there because they're loyal to the brand or they want that future goal, right? They have that future goal in mind, and that's why they go to that airline. For me, I feel like the things that really helped me get to American.
Yeah. So let's back up for a second because
Okay.
the first part of your story is so cool and we just jumped right over it. Like you were a flight attendant first.
I was.
Why did you become a flight attendant?
I became a flight attendant for travel, mainly.
Yeah, really?
Yes. I have always wanted to see other cultures and be all over the place, experience different countries, and just be able to have the ability to move around fluidly and experience new cultures, basically.
Yeah.
I got introduced to the industry through a former partner's sister. So she was a flight attendant.
Okay.
And she kind of talked me into going that route. She kind of gave me information on an interview that was happening. And so I decided to jump at the opportunity and just give it a try.
Okay.
Once I got in and started working, I realized that it was the only job that I had done that I felt like I didn't work at all. It did not feel like work. It never felt like work.
So you liked it?
I liked it. I knew it was a fit for me. And while I was there, of course, gaining the experience, being there a couple years, you get interested in what's happening on the other side of the door, right? On the pilot side.
Yeah.
The thing about becoming a flight attendant, it doesn't require a lot of, not that it's not a skilled position, but the barrier to entry is very low, right? As a flight attendant. I mean, of course, you have to pass the interview and get in, but you don't have to.
They train you there.
They train you there.
They train you to learn it.
Exactly.
At an airline, you're already like, hey, you've already got to know the things. We're just going to train you about the company.
Exactly. So you don't have to have any prior experience to get in as a flight attendant, right? But you still are in the same airplane as a pilot. You still get to experience the same job pretty much as far as traveling to new destinations and living that lifestyle of going on layovers and things like that.
So did you want to jump into the pilot job because they made more money or because they do different things? Like what was the kind of the catalyst?
It's a combination of a lot of different things. Yes, the money is great. You're on a whole different income ladder, if I may say.
Sure.
The part that really attracted me was the technical aspect of it. It was just a little bit more challenging. I have a background in engineering and I really enjoy math and science. So for me, the pilot side of things just felt a little bit more technical. It felt a little bit more intriguing than the service aspect and the service and safety aspect of being a flight attendant.
Yeah, it's interesting. Gosh, I bet you have such good perspective. Like once you got into that, so I don't want to jump ahead, but I do want to jump ahead. So I'm going to jump ahead and then I'm going to come right back. But once you got into that seat and you're flying at a regional and as a pilot and you're looking back and you have these interactions with the flight attendants, are you kind of like, oh, they should be doing this or they should be doing that? Or like, what kind of perspective does that give you? I can't even think about what kind of perspective that is.
Well, as far as like understanding what job they're supposed to do and for each flight, their specific duties, I don't really pay too much attention to that. I kind of just trust that they're doing the right thing, but I always am mindful of them. And I guess because I do have a better idea of what's going on in the cabin throughout the flight, through all the phases of flight, I think that I'm able to communicate with them better.
Yeah, mindfulness.
As a pilot.
That is such a good word for that. That is well done. Awesome. I love that. So I'm going to back right back up because I want to talk more about, so now you're a flight attendant. You're deciding that you want to become a pilot. How did you go about that? Like, how did you sort that out? Did you just grab some captain up front and be like, hey, dude, how do I do this?
Well, yes, I was a squeaky wheel for a long time. I was always bugging everyone that I saw for advice. And for me, personally, I'm the type of person, I really have to do a lot of research and understand what I'm going to do before I can fully commit to it. So for me, examples of other pilots' experiences, getting information on how they got to where they got and how much work it took, how much money it was going to cost, all of those things. There's so much information. And I'm a first generation aviator in my family, so I didn't have any guidance per se. And I also wasn't in any type of communities that were big on aviation. And so I didn't have access to those types of resources. So my biggest resource to understanding how to chart my path to becoming a pilot was just the pilots that I flew with. So I asked a lot of questions, got a lot of feedback from a lot of pilots, because as we all know, we all get to where we are with help from somebody else, right? And we all know that. And so everybody was willing to pay it forward, which was amazing. So the specific memory that I have of getting connected to a flight school was once I got to mainline and I had done enough research that I figured out that this is something that I wanted to commit to. I had a commuting regional pilot on my flight. And as a mainline flight attendant, sometimes the culture at mainline is they're a little bit less friendly to regional.
You don't say.
Crew members, sometimes. It's not always. Most of the time, we're one big happy family. But I have noticed that going from a regional environment to a mainline environment, the way that regional flight attendants treat crew members is a little bit different than the way, from my experience, that I saw mainline flight attendants treat crew members.
Is there a similar feeling between regional flight attendants and mainline flight attendants? Like a regional pilot would be looking at a mainline pilot, gosh, man, I can't wait. I just want to have that job. That's how I feel. When I was at my regional and I would look at guys in American and gals in American and be like, gosh, if I just had the chance, like if I could just get there.
There is not for everybody, not for everyone, because a lot of regional flight attendants are there to retire from that airline. Not all of them are wanting to make the hop. It's not as much of a career progression as it is on the pilot side.
Interesting.
But yes, when I was a regional flight attendant, I would look at other mainline flight attendants and be like, oh, wow, maybe one day I'll be able to be a mainline flight attendant too.
Yeah, that's so cool. So you had a regional captain on your flight and he kind of gave you that final push?
Yeah, well, it was a first officer, but
okay.
That's not really a super important detail. Or it will be if he's listening. But anyway, so I recognized that he was on our flight and we were going back to my base where I lived and where I was also looking to start my flight training. And so I pulled him aside and I said, hey, what can I get for you? I schmoozed him up a little bit, but then I started with the questions, right? I gave him all the hospitality and I'm like, I know you just want to go to sleep and you're probably tired, but can I get 2 seconds of your time? I just want to know if you have any information on this city and this flight training environment, because I don't know where to start. And maybe you did your flight training there. That's what I asked him. Sure enough, he did. So he was in the know about it. He passed me a phone number for a former student of his who is now an instructor. And so I got connected with that school, with that instructor. And basically the rest is history. I did all of my ratings at that school. So it was a connection that another pilot helped me make on his recommendation, was kind of like my first step into aviation.
Got it.
On the pilot side.
So you didn't do a cadet program or anything like that?
I did not.
You paid out of pocket?
I paid out of pocket. I did everything Part 61 at the flight school, and I did it on my time off from working as a flight attendant.
How much did it cost you?
This is a question that I always get, and I don't know the answer.
Did you take loans?
Can we edit that out?
No, we're not going to edit that out. I don't know how much it cost. I just spend all my money. Was your Amex totally maxed out? Or were you getting loans? Or were you paying out of pocket with your flight attendant salary?
I used 0% interest credit cards.
Ooh.
That was helpful, actually.
Really?
It was. I paid out of pocket with my salary. I also received some grants. So I am part Native American.
No kidding.
Yes.
That is so cool.
My tribe, actually, they provide grants to certain technical fields.
Oh my gosh.
So I was able to get in on that research and find out about that. And I was able to subsidize some of my ratings with funding from the tribe, which was an immense help. I can't even My salary was not very high as a flight attendant.
Of course.
So it was very challenging to gather all this money together.
Yeah. First off, like that is so cool. I'm like so geeking out over the fact, like, what an opportunity and what a treat to talk to somebody that's Native American and is a pilot. I don't know if I've ever met a Native American pilot. I love that. Gosh. Okay.
I'm sure you have.
I don't know.
I'm a very small percentage, actually. So.
Enough to get a grant. Let's go.
Yes.
That's so cool.
So different tribes have different quantum blood limitations that you have to be in order to get access to the benefits from the tribe.
Interesting.
So every tribe has different rules for being able to access those things. Fortunately, my tribe, as long as you can prove your bloodline, basically, you're able to get access to all of the benefits from the tribe. So it's a very huge opportunity for anyone with that bloodline.
Absolutely. Man, look into it, people. Like, find your heritage and know your heritage. And if there's an opportunity to take advantage because of that, do it. Do not hold back. Gosh, that's probably the most valuable thing I've heard in a long time. I love that.
Absolutely.
Now I'm going to be asking everybody if they're Native American because there's grants for like...
There are grants. Yeah. Then I guess that's not information that a lot of people know about. And the thing is that the grants that I received were not specifically for aviation. I kind of had to creatively go in there and do research and find out that they did offer financial assistance towards technical certifications. And in my mind, I was like, well, a private pilot certificate sounds like a technical certification to me.
Man.
And sure enough, when I emailed them and applied for it, they said, oh yeah, sure. For me, I was able to apply up to 4 to 5 times, I believe. So for each rating, I was able to do it. And as long as it's within the same education line, like it's the same, right, education line, you're able to receive the funding.
I've never even heard that.
So that was a great help
for me. That is so good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dang.
And then also I did receive a scholarship as well. It wasn't from my flight school. They advertised it at my flight school, but it was through Spirit and OBAP.
Oh, no kidding.
That I applied for a scholarship, and that helped toward one of my ratings as well.
Awesome. Well, shout out to Joel Webley and all the awesome people at OBAP. That's so cool. All right. So
my biggest advice for people is really do all your research. There's money out there to help you. And like you're mentioning, there are cadet programs now.
Yeah, man.
At the time, there wasn't any for me.
This is so funny because the first time we spoke, we talked about a totally different topic. And then we rolled into this conversation about getting hired outside of the flow. And now I'm like, wait a second, you're Native American and we're all the things. Each time we talk, I find out like this huge bucket of cool information that I had no idea to even think about asking. Man. Okay, so
I'm glad it can be helpful.
Man, it's so helpful. You don't even know. Like, seriously, like there's some Native American kid sitting around right now listening to this and like has no idea how to climb the hill. And you just told him what's up. And it's going to change his life, her life, all of them.
I hope so.
So yeah, it's going to be awesome. Okay, so I want to fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
And get you in your regional. And now you're at the regional. It's American Airlines wholly owned. And when I was at Envoy, they told me it was going to be 4 years to flow. But at the time it was like 7 years and kind of coming down. But then coronavirus happened and they like stopped everything as a screeching halt. And the flow actually ended up being like my classmates are getting flowed pretty soon. They're still not flowed, but it's 2023 now, and we were hired in 2017. So that's like 6 years and some change, and they're still not flowed, but they're close. What was it like for you? Because they told you it was a certain amount of time. What did you hear?
When I got hired, it was a 6-year flow was the word on the street and what they told us, not just word on the street. But the official word was 6 years. I started in 2019. So I was only on the line for about 6 months before everything shut down for COVID.
Did you get furloughed?
You know what? It was a little bit more than 6 months. I did not get furloughed. I was about 100 people away from getting a warn letter.
Okay, got it.
As of the last time that I checked my official flow date, contractually, it was going to be February 2026.
Okay, so 3 years from now. So that's 7-ish, 6 and a long 6.
Right. That doesn't account for attrition, but If you're just
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
the seniority numbers and dividing it by how many people are flowing every month, that's what the date would be.
Okay. Did you know when you started that you were going to get hired outside the flow? Was that your focus, or were you just happy to be there?
I was happy to be there for many years, but when all of the hiring started, I think is when I became a little bit more focused on getting hired, just because you see the movement, you see what's happening, and waiting for flow. If there's so much movement, waiting for flow doesn't quite make as much sense for certain people in certain situations. It's not the case for everyone, right?
Well, that's super vague. That's super vague.
I found just from talking to a lot of people, some people are really benefiting from staying at the regionals and waiting for their flow date because they're either one, because of the financials of it. A lot of money is being thrown at these pilots currently to keep them where they are. For some people, the regional airline, what they can offer as far as bases and quality of life situations, it works better for them to stay at the regional as long as they can.
Yeah. When I was at Envoy, a lot of we called them lifers, that decided that they did not want to flow and that they were going to stay at the airline. And this was before we started throwing big money at regionals. But those guys and gals, the reason that they were there was because their timing was really crappy. And they made it through the misery of post 9/11 into the bankruptcies, all this trash. And then the flows started and they chose not to, oftentimes for life issues like, hey, my kids are now old enough that they're going to be in college. I need to be able to pay for college. I need to offer some stability to my family. I'm taking care of a family member for this or that. And that is, or I don't want to give up any quality of life. You know, I get the schedule I want. I'm in the top 2% of the pilot group and I can do exactly what I want. And I don't need $500,000 a year to survive. I can live off of, they're probably making like 175, 185, like back then. That's probably where it was. And so, yeah. So here you are, and you are married?
Engaged, not quite yet married.
Engaged. Do you have children?
Not yet.
Not yet. Do you have a dog?
Yes.
You have a dog. So that's the
I have
one
a dog
thing,
child.
like, that's the one thing like holding you down as far as you can be mobile. You can do whatever you want. There's no life commitment anchoring you, right? That I know of.
I do.
There are maybe?
Yes, because my fiance and I own a house.
Okay.
In our city. And we have a lot of family in this city. So I do have an anchor. So it doesn't limit my opportunities, but if you're considering commuting, that type of factor, it makes a huge difference in who I fly for in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you knew that American was it. Like that was where you wanted. If United called you, you'd be like, sorry guys, I'm going to stay here because this is where I'm planted.
Yes. But with all of the opportunities these days, I could have gone away from that choice. I prefer not to commute, but I would accept commuting to work for a legacy. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotcha. Absolutely. Very important. And so one of the things you mentioned earlier when we were recording this in 2023, there are some huge benefits being offered, some financial benefits being offered to regional airline pilots. And I can't get into the specifics because I don't know them all, but basically like the young first officers, not young, but I mean, the first officers are getting captain pay before they're a captain. And each airline has their own limit. Some is like once you get selected or something like that, or $950 or whatever it is, you get captain pay. The check airman pay is huge. It's like $425 an hour.
The captain pay happens at 750 hours.
750.
Yeah.
750 hours for captain's pay. That's insane.
Your upgrade happens at 950.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so awesome.
Yes.
You check airman pay, I think, is like $425 or something. And then there are all these extra incentives if you stay for the flow. If you're a captain for a certain amount of time, they'll give you a certain amount of money, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, whatever. But if you stay till the flow, captains can get somewhere around $100,000 to flow, or if you're hired outside of the flow, like you were, you get a certain amount of money. I want to hear the details about how you got to get hired outside the flow, because there's so many people that I talk to that have such a hard time with this, or they're just reserved, hey, I'm never going to get hired outside the flow. It's impossible to get hired outside the flow. So I'm just going to sit back.
Yep.
So what did you do?
I'm glad you mentioned that mindset because I've heard so many people say that to me. And the thing that I noticed that I was doing differently than what they were doing is that I was putting forth a little bit more effort on getting involved with the company. Just different ways to make your experience at your airline a little bit create more variety and gain more experience in different avenues of your airline besides just flying the line. I mean, flying the line is great and you need to do a great job doing that as well. Don't ever lose your professionalism in that. But I was involved in the hotel committee. If there were other opportunities that presented itself, I tried to get on with LOSA, which is line safety auditing.
Line oriented.
I think that's what it is.
Safety auditing. That's right. It's basically observing CRM and the flow of an aircraft. It's a really awesome tool and a really cool thing that companies do.
Correct. And especially with all the movement that the regionals are doing right now, with all the attrition, there's a lot of opportunities to get involved with your union or with the company on different committees. I got involved in that.
And so you were making yourself known. You were getting to know the people in your company that make the decisions, that do the things.
I guess so. It's just I was gaining more experience in different avenues of the airline that I didn't even realize existed.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, networking as well.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I put a lot of effort into was going to the pilot hiring conferences. Well, I guess it's not specifically a pilot hiring conference, but I'm a member of and attended NGPA last year, Women in Aviation. I attended the RTAG convention in October. That happens for veterans and current active military members. Being a part of those conferences, it really gives you a different perspective on what's going on, and being able to actually speak with recruiters from the specific airlines that you're interested in, it gave me a wealth of information and experience that I didn't have before.
I want to bring a real quick point. You're not military, right?
I am not.
But you went to RTAG.
I did. So there's no limitation on, you don't have to be part of that group to go to the conference.
Exactly.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Was it fun?
You can attend, it's open to everyone, basically. Yeah. All of these conferences, they're open to anyone and everyone. And I still had a great time.
Yes.
I didn't feel like an outsider. It was still a great opportunity. I still got treated with respect. It wasn't like they ignored me because I wasn't a former military member or an active military member.
Thank you for saying that. 50% of the people I talk to are probably military, and they think, oh, well, I'm not a female, so I'm not going to go to Women in Aviation, or I'm not gay, I'm not going to go to NGPA, or I'm not African American, I'm not going to go to OBAP, or whatever. Like, go out there,
right?
Get spread your wings, man. Like, get out there and have fun and enjoy and love on some people and get to make new friends. I love it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It exposes you to so many other people that you would not have met, maybe, just on the line. I mean, when you're flying the line, you're just limited to the one person you're flying with for that trip most of the time. If you're involved in committees or you're going to the conferences, you're just widening your network that much more. And it's not widening your network specifically just to get hired, but you're widening your network of people that you are hearing other people's experiences. It's just a great time.
Were you going to those conferences as a recruiter for the regional while you were doing it?
No, I was not. I wanted to get involved in recruiting, but the opportunity and the timing for me just never happened.
Okay.
But that's okay. I mean, you can still go and you can even stop by your airline stand and get to know those people and hang out with them for a little bit. They're all there representing your airline. A lot of people, they forget about that part. They have their sights set on their dream airline that they're going to meet, but they forget everybody else is there too.
Yeah. It's also funny to me when I see somebody that works for airline X and they want to get hired by airline Y, and they'll make a wide circle around the station for that airline they're flying for because they don't want to see them trying to network and get jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Every airline has their own politics. I'm not sure if
that's tricky.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's easy for me to say it in my ivory tower on this podcast, but
Right.
I'm not saying do or don't. Just know what the best course for yourself is. Okay, so you go to the conferences, and did you get hired from a conference?
I did not, but it did help. Every time you go to a conference, when you attend a meet and greet with an airline, I guess they give you points, or it's on file that you attended and you met with someone. So it's not like it's for nothing. You go and you get the wealth of information you get from the recruiter that you're speaking with.
Yeah.
That's also extremely helpful because they're there to give you tips on hiring, on what your next steps are. If your resume is not,
that's right,
they feel like it's not strong enough, they'll tell you what to do to make it stronger. And the other thing that I forgot to mention, when you go to the conferences, especially at RTAG, I found so much value in going to one of the Spitfire meetings. It was awesome.
Yes,
it was awesome.
Good plug.
It was just, I got to be in a room with you guys, and you all provided a ton of information on what your services that you offer are, but also just gave a lot of great information and a lot of great examples.
Yeah, hopefully it was no pressure. Well, you just try to pour into everybody and help everybody out.
Yeah, I just went and it was great.
Awesome. So did you just get the email from American saying, hey, we want to interview you? Or did you kick in the front door down there on FAA Road and tell everybody in pilot hiring that you had to be hired immediately? What did you do?
So I opened myself up to all the opportunities that were available to me. So I didn't apply to just one airline. I applied to all of the legacies and considered United, American, and Delta. There were reasons for me personally to go to all of them. I actually received a invitation to interview from United first. I went to the interview, I received the CJO, and because of the bases that American offers, I actually sent my CJO into a recruiter at American and just requested their consideration. I had heard from previous people who had gotten hired outside of the flow, and they had told me that that is something that could possibly work. It's not like a specific strategy. It's not a strategy that will get you in 100% of the time, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
But it is a good way to kind of reach out and let them know that you're very interested in them and that you have a different job offer, but you would really like to be considered by them. I did, and I also try to network with all of the people that I meet at the conventions on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great tool to network and stay connected with people, but it's also a great way to
it's so good.
Have access to all their information for what all of the pilot associations and recruiters are doing and where they're going to be next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good. And you know, what I'll say is you're not unique in the fact that you got a CJO and you went to the other airline and said, hey, listen, I really would love to work with you guys and love the opportunity to interview if you would be interested. Right. But I also know a lot that have been turned away
a bit
for
of
that
a gamble.
And said, no, thanks, we're good. It can be a little risky.
Move. But if you don't do it, then you'll never know if that would have worked for you or not. And if you just stay silent with your dream airline.
That's right. And you're turning over every stone, right? You're trying to get to where you are because like you said at the beginning, you're like, hey, if I needed to commute, I would commute because it's a awesome opportunity from a regional flight attendant all the way to a major airline pilot. Like that is a long, long road and it's a really awesome one. And to know what's best for you and your family and the fact that American is where you fit best. And that you're not an old lady. You are a person that's going to be in that company, part of their culture for decades and decades. And that, like, you're going to be transformative there. And that will be a really cool thing. And hopefully you're going to like get into recruiting out there at American. And then I'll see you at the booth.
I hope so. I would love that.
Hey, here's some, yeah. Let's go grab a beer. This is great.
One thing I want to add to that, it is a huge decision to make, right? Because you are going to stay there for your entire career. So you need to put a lot of thought into it, of course. And then if you're offered a position, a different company, it's worth it to reach out to your dream company. One thing that I want to add to that is that I think that your delivery in your communication when you're reaching out has a lot to do with the response you get.
A lot. Everything. 100% of it. Yeah.
You have to be really mindful of your audience, right, that you're speaking to when you're reaching out. It's easy to kind of get caught in this mindset of, yeah, I'm a pilot. It's a pilot's market. I can do whatever I want. Like, people are going to hire me. And basically just treat these opportunities as something that happens every day.
Yeah.
Pilot hiring is at an all-time high right now. So yes, these opportunities, you're getting more opportunities than you ever would have before, but it hasn't always been like this, and it won't always be like this either. So these opportunities, even if you can really minimize it in your mind if you look at it from a specific perspective, but I think that it's really important to keep in mind that these are big opportunities and to be respectful to those who are reaching out to you. Or
yeah, all you've got to do is find somebody with gray hair in a pilot uniform and ask them what it was like.
Exactly. Right. And most of the time, your audience, the people who are hiring or doing the meet and greets, these are people with a lot of experience in the industry. They've put a lot of years in, and they've seen a whole different side of the industry.
Yeah, and they're trying to flex too. It's really awesome. First off, I want to thank you for all of this information and all the guidance and all the mentoring that you have done in this conversation, because I feel like there are so many people that were in your shoes and that I speak with. And once we started peeling back that onion, I mean, you are intentional and you are focused and you are that person that will not stop until you get what you want. From regional flight attendant to mainline flight attendant, from flight student to regionals to the majors at your dream job. It didn't happen overnight. And so I thank you for spending that time. And it's always good every time Jimmy comes on and gives us some really cool information. We're very thankful. So thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I do hope that the information will be helpful to future generations.
Hey, before you jump out of here and go on to the next podcast, can I ask a big favor? Would you mind going over to your app that you're listening to this podcast on and give me a review? Give me a 5-star review if you love it. Give me a 1-star review if it totally sucks. Put a comment in there, something that is helpful. It helps me. It helps get the word out there. It helps people find the podcast, and that's super cool. If you don't do that, maybe you could just share the podcast with a friend. Tell a buddy who's trying to figure it out, trying to sort out this pilot dream of theirs and get a little bit further. That is super awesome as well. Last, if you don't do either of those two things, how about this? Find a way today to make yourself 1% better. Do that thing that you've been putting off. Put your foot forward, make movement, get yourself going, get that inertia that you need to succeed in this industry. So that's your choice. Leave a review, tell a friend, or make yourself better. Either way, it's all a good choice. And I'm super stoked you're listening, and I will see you on the next episode. The statements made on this show are my own opinions and do not reflect, nor are they under any direction from my employer.